Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. We're your source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development, where we share original research, explore industry trends, and interview executives and thought leaders from across the globe. We hope you join us often for practitioner-oriented content around all things related to leadership, HR, talent management, organizational development, and change management. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with Human Capital Innovations Podcast. Do you enjoy the Human Capital Innovations Podcast? Please subscribe, leave a review, comment, share, and consider supporting the podcast on Patreon, even at the producer and sponsorship levels. Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. In this HCI Podcast episode, I talk with Ben Richardson about the impacts of COVID-19 on the learning and development industry. Ben Richardson, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it is a pleasure to be with you today. I'm super excited to be talking with you about the learning and development industry. We're both in this space, spend a lot of time and energy here, and I know you have had a long storied career in this space. We're going to be talking about it generally, but we're also going to be talking about the impacts of the pandemic and really the last 2 years of disruption and what that's had on the impact that that's had on the learning and development industry. As we get started, I wanted to share Ben's bio with everybody. Ben Richardson joined Go1 in January as their Chief Content Officer. As CCO, Ben will oversee internal and external content initiatives across multiple platforms to drive sales, engagement, retention, and positive customer behavior. He has more than a decade of experience in developing and implementing strategies that not only deliver business innovation, but also further strengthen brand messaging. Prior to Go1, Ben served as General Manager and Senior Vice President at Viacom CBS and led the launch of the subscription streaming service Paramount+. What a tremendous background. Again, pleasure to have you. Anything else you would like to share with listeners by way of your background or personal context before we dive on into the conversation for today?
Well, it has been, I've had quite a few decades of experience, definitely in the media space. And obviously, it does seem like quite a career pivot for me as well, moving into learning and development, and particularly on the content development side when it comes to learning. So I think it's I'm on a steep learning curve. So as we have this conversation today, I think I will be able to talk from experience as a manager and as a learner, and also I think I'm fresh enough to have, I suppose, a lot of reactions to what I found and experienced as I've moved into the digital learning space.
Yeah, well, interesting. And if you don't mind me asking, and we can digress for just a minute from the main topic, your time at Viacom CBS and the launch of Paramount Plus, super interesting disruption, in the industry when we talk about all these streaming services. And everyone's kind of wrestling with each other to get the next, service out and to stay competitive. I'm wondering what some of the biggest challenges were that you and your team faced as you were trying to get Paramount Plus ready to go and launched.
Yeah, well, I came from the Viacom side of the business. So for your listeners, that was the business that ran the pay TV brands, Nickelodeon, MTV, Comedy Central. So my background was in audience. It was in content creation. It was in distribution and licensing. So it was a really, really broad sort of media remit. And I think the pandemic, the accelerant that it created was people started to work from home, and we saw an acceleration of just consumption. If we look at the attention economy, people really started to spend a lot more time on their media. And we've since seen that slow down to a point as people have started to come back into the office. But, it was going into the pandemic, I think while the plans to launch a streaming service were very much present, it did accelerate. and I think investment in content, but also the challenges around creating content that really, really accelerated people. We could see consumption going up. And I felt like the moment had arrived when, the business really accelerated from the legacy pay business to making sure that the business was led by streaming and subscriptions as well. So the challenges was it's an expensive arms race. If you start to look at the investments that have been made in content in the last 2 years, it's eye-watering. The choice that we have as consumers is incredible. And in the video space, unlike the audio space, Spotify's been able to, and Apple Music have been able to consolidate every song in one place. In the video space, there is competition, there is exclusivity. And I think one of the bigger challenges is consumers having to shop around, having to move around, having to subscribe and unsubscribe to follow a show from one service to the other. So, it's been the rate of change was incredible. Consumers are well served, but now that I'm not in that business, I can see also it feels like we're heading towards another stage of consolidation as well. And that's kind of been the interesting things coming into learning, where it's still by necessity, a fragmented and complex ecosystem. Media is shrinking. The cost of entry is just enormous. As consumers, we're the winners, but I think, we are entering a period of rapid change.
Yeah, well, you refer to it as the arms race of content creation. And I think that's a really great way to frame it up. And I can't help but just think about my own personal experience and that of my family as things got locked down, early COVID days, March of 2020. We're not going out, we're not spending money on live entertainment, we're not going out to eat, but we're just all together at home. And of course, we end up watching more shows and binging shows. And I will admit that this isn't Paramount Plus, but Netflix, I was definitely an early adopter to Tiger King. And, so I'm like, this is a weird, fascinating show. I'm not sure I would have ever watched it otherwise, but it was just kind of an escape, and I watched it. And that's just one kind of little point of info about, laying out this overall picture that you're describing of just content consumption. And I will, fast forwarding a couple years or whenever it was that the second season of Tiger King came out, I had zero interest in watching it. I didn't watch it. So the time had passed, and I had adjusted, and my family had adjusted, and we were, our times and energies were spent on other things. But everyone continues over the last couple of years, the amount of money spent in the content space to create more materials for the streaming services is mind-blowing. And as you said, you've made the transition over to the learning and development industry and the learning and development space. The content there has the amount of investment there has also been eye-popping over the last couple of years, with super fragmented, like everyone and their dog, creating learning and development materials. And this is wonderful in a lot of ways because it's driving down price for consumers. It's lots of really wonderful content, a lot of free content, a lot of inexpensive content that people can use to reskill and upskill. All of that is tremendous. And yet we'll still have to figure out long-term what this is going to look like moving into the future, whether that's, various forms of consolidation or whatever. And that's really where I want to go next. We can dig into talking more specifically about the ins and outs of learning and development and the industry. But I'm also, maybe first we can talk about the impacts of this acceleration into content creation over the last couple of years due to the pandemic and COVID. And now that you're in this new position, as you said, this new learning curve, you're in this space, what have you seen with fresh eyes coming into the space, and where do you see things going, say, in the next couple of years?
My observation is the radical change that the content creators have undergone. My experiences on the other side as a general manager were most of that training was in person. You had a broad range of experts, some you'd worked with, you'd bring them into a room and you'd gather 10, 20 employees and do an in-person training session over a longer period of time. And that was the default, and with the pandemic, all of those trainers who've come from such a range of backgrounds and have built these really nice, often very small and very organic businesses, they had to pivot drastically because suddenly there wasn't a workplace to come from. So my first observation was the amount of change that these creators have gone through. And I appreciate there were a lot already, creating digital learning. But for many, they'd gone from in-person to digital, having to acquire a huge number of skills themselves to be able to present that same experience, that authentic experience, the engaging experience in a digital format. They had to learn how to create it. They had to learn how to distribute it, and all these challenges they had to solve for in a really, really short space of time, where now digital learning is the default. You can't imagine an industry just going through such rapid change where suddenly, digital is now the default. And that, from as an outsider coming in, is just an incredible amount of change to comprehend. Just the accumulation of skills, as the trainers have had to become retrained and upskilled themselves. And so as I observe that, and if you think of the early stages of the pandemic, where we suddenly got used to working in Zoom and Teams and the world shifted so radically and pivoted so radically that the learning and development industry has gone. It feels like it's been at the forefront of a lot of that change. We were used to being entertained in a certain way, but training just radically shifted. So that was one of the big observations for me. And I think fortunately the employer I joined, Go1, we have the world's biggest learning library. We were fortunately in the right place to really benefit from that change, and from that move to remote working allowed us to sort of really be at the right place at the right time. And so I've landed in the right place. I'm overwhelmed by the amount of change and evolution that's gone on in the industry, and I'm really invested in where it goes from here. It's hard to force this much change on organizations and communities, isn't it? Without something like a pandemic, it's just unprecedented.
It's incredible to think about the adoption of these new technologies and this new modality for delivering of learning and development. The training industry has gone through that huge shift. And as you mentioned, clearly there were organizations that had digital, e-learning content before. I'm a university professor in addition to my consulting work. And so in the learning and development space, I've done, my own work for a long time, but I also have taught in the university space as a full-time professor for a long time. And the university is a good case in point on this. Did we have online programs before? Yes. Did we have online courses before? Yes. Were they any good? That's another question. Were they engaging? Were they, or were they kind of like a bare minimum version of the traditional in-person classroom? And it depended, right? It depended on the professor and what they really put into their online learning. But ultimately what we found over the last couple of years is everyone was forced, all professors, the whole university was forced to invest in training to help them learn how to better deliver online learning content. And in many cases, what we used to think about in terms of that online learning, in terms of asynchronous learning, we now have reframed and recognized that you can do synchronous virtual online learning very effectively. And in fact, that's something that I hadn't done a lot of prior to the pandemic. I've done tons of leadership development trainings and in-person trainings. I've done asynchronous online trainings for years. I've done all of that. And it wasn't until the last couple of years that this new synchronous online modality opened up widely for a much larger number of people. And I say that as someone who's been enmeshed in the space for a really long time, and it still wasn't something I was very involved in. Well, now everyone is involved in, anyone who's involved in the learning space, they have had to figure out how to be effective doing it virtually, and whether that's synchronous, asynchronous, whatever, some sort of hybrid approach. And so that's a good thing and a challenge. Obviously, it's a great thing to have new skills in your tool belt. It's a great thing to have different types of modalities that suit and meet different needs in different contexts. And it's fantastic also to be able to have expanded reach, to be able to have more accessibility to a wider audience, because you don't have to bring everyone physically together in one space. that you can serve many more individuals because of the virtual component, yet it still continues to have a different dynamic than being together in person. So, all of these things are pros and cons. I just wanted to highlight what you've been saying, that I've seen it. I've seen that shift over the last couple of years. I've experienced it personally. I've seen it in the lives of other professionals, other consultants, others in the training, learning and development space. And I think more is coming because, we continue to have disruptive technologies, and whether or not this pandemic thing is replaced by the next pandemic or the next disruption or just technological advances, we're going to continue to see this arrangement that we have become more accustomed to shift over time. You're going to have things like the metaverse. You're going to have virtual reality training sessions and those sorts of things that I honestly haven't really wrapped my mind around totally. And I'm not really sure what that'll look like. Any thoughts on some of those kind of out there in the next 5-10 years, technical developments that will change this industry even further? Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Academy. Courses, micro-credentials, and certificates to upskill and reskill for the future of work. All HCI Academy courses, micro-credentials, and certificates are designed, developed, and delivered by award-winning and internationally renowned scholars, educators, thought leaders, executives, and practitioners. Our courses, micro-credentials, and certificates will help you make your mark on the future of work and make an immediate impact in your organizations. Check out the HCI Academy and our many course offerings and certificates to upskill and reskill for the future of work. Check out our new weekly LinkedIn newsletter, Alchemizing Human Capital, exploring industry trends via original research and interviews with executives and thought leaders from across the globe. We look forward to having you join us. Check out Human Capital Innovations magazine, Human Capital Leadership. Human Capital Leadership is a free, interactive e-magazine with the mission to help individuals, leaders, and organizations find innovative approaches to maximize their human capital potential. We publish issues quarterly in August, November, February, and May. Take a look at the latest issue and let us know what you think.
Yeah, so I mean, even a shorter time frame. Have been doing a bit of a roadshow just around Australia at the moment to talk to the future of Go1's learning experience. And so at Go1, we are not creators of content per se. We do invest where we need to fill a gap, but really in the business of creating tools to allow our creators to deliver content that is more immersive and engaging. So if we talk about virtual reality, so Go1 has made an investment in a company called Tailspin. It's a US-based company, and the creators actually came from the special effects industry in Hollywood, to be honest. And so they had that experience, and they're applying that to learning. So they call it extreme learning or extreme reality, and it covers, you can do it training, whether it's through a browser or with a headset, like the Oculus or the hopefully soon to be launched Apple headset as well. The statistics behind immersive learning are really, really impressive. It's, there was a Stanford study which showed that immersive learning is 76% more effective. People learn faster, they're more focused, they're more emotionally connected. Where virtual reality, I think, applies to learning, and I think where it's effective, it's really in allowing learners to rehearse conversations. It's so what the experience looks like is if you are have a headset on, you're in a room with an avatar, and you may be interviewing a person, you may be doing a performance review, you may be training a sales team. But in this training environment, you get real-time feedback. So in an interview environment, you ask the questions of 3 very different looking candidates, and you ask from a drop-down menu of questions. Each interview is different, and you get feedback immediately. How did you approach them? What bias did you demonstrate? Where could you have been more effective in that conversation? So to me, this is a really, really exciting development, and it will actually be realized sooner rather than later. So with Tailspin, they have created a tool. So I always compare it to, say, a GarageBand or an iMovie, which is a simple to use no-code tool. So the creators will have access to this tool, and they'll be able to adapt and evolve their learning and develop virtual experiences. For the learner, the benefit is you get to have those real-time conversations, those difficult conversations. If I think about my journey as a manager, I was probably thrown in the deep end, as were most people of my generation, I'd say. And so you made mistakes in real time. Those first performance management conversations, those difficult conversations, those challenging conversations with a manager, they played out in real time. With immersive learning, you get to rehearse, you get to fail. And so I think this is going to be one of the most exciting things that will be coming to the learning and development space. It is here, but I think it's going to see some rapid evolution as well. So that's one of the things that we're really exciting about. We're developing 10 modules, focused on better communication, exploring diversity and inclusion, identifying bias, developing emotional intelligence, leading through uncertainty. So these will all be modules where the learner can actually get to practice in real time, get feedback, and not make perhaps the errors that I made as a developing manager. And I think they'll be much better off as a result. So it's a tool we're actively developing. It's something I'm really excited about. Whenever we talk to our customers about it, they're really excited as well, because our customers are experiencing, they're at the coalface of a very, very different workplace, and a workplace that's shifted so radically. So I think this is going to be a really exciting development, and I think Go1's going to be able to take a leadership position.
Yeah, that's super cool. And again, I can't help but think about, well, what does this mean for my own personal work that I do in the training, learning, and development space, both on the corporate side, but also in the university space, in traditional academic coursework. There's always going to be a place for in-person learning, whether on the corporate side or in the academic, traditional brick and mortar university setting. But more and more people really are craving that flexibility and the accessibility that comes through these various high engagement kinds of online learning opportunities. So this virtual reality approach, high fidelity opportunities to connect with other people in meaningful ways in a live format, I think that's going to play a tremendous role moving forward. And I know for myself that's something I'm definitely going to have to pay more attention to. I'm going to have to reskill and upskill myself a bit. And I have tons of training in this space. I know what I'm doing, yet I'm not fully, aware of all of the emerging technologies. And I suspect I'm not the only one. So there's a lot of us out there that need to do more work in this space so that we're ready for the next wave, and we're ready to leverage that as an opportunity, not just see it as, a challenge that we have to respond to. Well, Ben, go ahead.
I would just say reskilling and upskilling have always been present in our lives. I'm sure you as well. I trained as a projectionist of film. I remember when I used to, edit film with a glue and a cutter. And so if I look back on my life, there has been this constant upskilling and reskilling. It just is getting faster. There are more tools at our disposal, and it is overwhelming. And so, that's what we're trying to solve for at Go1.
Yeah, it is getting faster and faster, and I only anticipate that trajectory continuing. I don't see it slowing down anytime soon. So we have to be adaptable and just adopt a growth mindset that we're constantly stretching ourselves and learning. And if we try to dig in our heels and try to just do things the way we've always done them, because that's what we're comfortable with, even if it's because we think that's really what the best way is, we're going to find ourselves left out. of
Right.
the shifts that occur, and it's just inevitable. Well, Ben, it has been a real pleasure talking with you. I know at the time I'm going to have to let you go here in just a minute, but before we wrap up for today, I wanted to give you a chance to share with listeners how they can get connected with you, find out more about your work at Go1 and your team, and then give us a final word on the topic for today.
Thank you. So you can find me on LinkedIn, of course. But if you want to find out more about what Go1 are doing, what we're developing, go1.com. We have newsletters, podcasts, blogs. I think, we've got a really, really active bunch of creators who are really constantly telling and refreshing our story, highlighting our content, talking about developments in the industry. So, if you go to our website, you will be able to stay very much up to date with what we're doing. My final thought is, Go1 may not have the presence or the awareness particularly in the American and European markets, but this is a really, really impressive business. And I think I joined them because they had so many great things going for them, so much potential, but a beautiful mission. Unlock positive potential through a love of learning. And I think that that in itself is a fantastic premise for us to really continue to sort of evolve and integrate into organizations everywhere. And really the beneficiaries are organizations and learners. The beneficiary is simplicity. We're saving for time and delivering great value. So I'm really excited to have joined this industry. I'm really excited about its potential and where it's going. And I can just see so much to come in such a short space of time. The pandemic has been an accelerant, and I think everyone's going to be a benefit of that as well in the learning space in particular. So thank you. Love to connect with your listeners. And thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you, Ben. It's been a pleasure. I encourage listeners to reach out, get connected, find out more about what Ben can do for you. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week. Check out my new book, The Future Leader, Creating and Transforming Next-Gen Organizations. Stemming from 2 decades of professional experience and over 600 in-depth interviews with executives, thought leaders, and scholars from across the globe, The Future Leader will help you explore the ordinary, everyday actions that will help you to prepare to lead in the future of work, to respond to an uncertain future, and to produce extraordinary results for individuals, teams, and organizations. Bluer Than Indigo Leadership, the journey of becoming a truly remarkable leader. Early in my adult life, I learned about an Asian proverb that translates as bluer than indigo. If you think about the color indigo, it is a brilliant, deep, and vibrant blue, what some would call the bluest of blues. To have something that is bluer than indigo is rare and truly remarkable. Contrary to popular myth, there is no one-size-fits-all or cookie-cutter approach to effective leadership. There is no silver bullet, no secret sauce, no go-to model that will solve all of your problems. The truth is, great leaders have all had their unique strengths and flaws, and have all had to discover and then pave their own distinctive path in their life's journey to fulfill their leadership potential. Bluer Than Indigo Leadership will help you discover your own path and explore those ordinary, everyday actions that will help you respond to an uncertain future and produce extraordinary results for individuals, teams, and organizations. The Alchemy of Truly Remarkable Leadership. Ordinary, everyday actions that produce extraordinary results. Consider how the nature of work has shifted over the past 50 years. With increased globalization, rapid technological advancement, and the shift in economic composition, the average job of today looks very different than the average job of 50 years ago. What will the jobs and organizations of tomorrow look like? Moreover, what does this all mean for organizational leaders? What are the core competencies and capabilities of organizations and their leadership that are prepared for continued disruption and geopolitical and socioeconomic shifts? Regardless of what the future holds, increasingly, leaders need to be socially minded, data-driven, decisive, champions of talent, and disruptors of the traditional notions of leadership, teams, organizations, and work. The Alchemy of Truly Remarkable Leadership will help you to explore your own leadership competencies and capabilities and consider ways to apply and implement them into your workplace and personal life. Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. I hope you stay healthy and safe and that you have a great week.